All right, here we go. And it's a pleasure to have Ashley-engels here today from the Huntsville, Madison County HSV Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber, that's right.
The chamber that matters to the 13 counties. Essentially, there's 13 counties in our region that contribute to the numbers and stuff that the chamber collects from an economic development standpoint and different statistics. So you've been a highly referred guest, if I could say.
Oh, now my hands are really sweating.
Because there's always that. How do we meet? And because I have the good news is I have a lot of people reaching out who want to come on the show, get a lot of referrals. Yeah. So unless I was doing an episode every day, it's hard to. I feel bad. Like, well, how about August? How about September? Just as far as scheduling out. And I do want to try and get to a point where I'll do like a recorded like this, just kind of something we plan in advance, we record it. It doesn't necessarily matter that there's current events going on. However, and just talking with Ashley before we went live, there is the Paralympics.
That's right.
Coming up, and that changes it for me. Now I do have the interest in getting this out sooner than later, and or maybe even having someone like you on or someone else that's affiliated with it, like right after it happens.
Yeah.
Kind of do the the post event analysis.
Yeah.
Like the in depth. Hey, how did it go? You did all this planning? Did it go off, the way you wanted it to go off, that type thing?
This will actually be, I think, the third para event that we have hosted. The lead from the chamber is Erin Koshut. She's the executive director of Cummings Research Park.
Okay.
So she would be, and I can certainly make that connection. She would be, and it would be great. I mean, right? It's a wonderful thing for our city as we're growing in so many different ways. And the after action for a race like that, on top of what I'm sure is more and more to come for the community in a variety of ways, right? We've got more soccer coming. We've just got so many things coming. So yeah.
Well, that's funny you say that, because this week I will release the episode with Chad Emerson from the Huntsville City Football Club.
Awesome.
And we talked about Joe Davis, and it was cool having him on, because he was the first. He came in. He was like, "Am I the first repeat guest?" Like, no, but you're the first repeat guest where you've like changed jobs.
Oh, okay.
Because when he came on, it was literally the day after the news came out about us being the #1 place to live in the U.S. News and World Report.
So last May.
That was last May.
Okay.
And I believe I know I interviewed him on a Tuesday, and I believe the news came out on a Monday. And it was it was literally like the very next. It was like there was no way anybody else could have gotten to him. I had like the exclusive first crack at interviewing him over that news. And
I think I'm having coffee with him this week, as a matter of fact. I think so.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and at that point, you'll be able to. I'm like releasing clips, of course.
Yeah.
And shout out to TPG. They are my platinum sponsor for the next several episodes, and so that will be the initial episode. So Lisa DeFalco, CEO over at TPG, shout out to her and her team.
Yes.
That episode will come out the following week, and you'll hear her whole story. It's a really cool story. Talk about women in business and just she has a really interesting, unique story.
Oh, wow.
Coming out of Newark, New Jersey.
That's wonderful.
So you'll enjoy that.
Yeah. As, because we do those series. We have a C-suite series. We have a Women's Business Council. So those are all things that we love to tap into and share.
Now, how long did you say this is the third annual Paralympics? Is it?
This is a different level of event. This is an international event. The two prior to that were different. I can't speak eloquently to how different they are, but this is much bigger. Like, we've got over 350 athletes. A number of countries will be coming. Several have already come to scout out where they're going to stay, what hotels they're going to be at, where their athletes are going to be. So this is a much higher level event than we've had, or I should say a much larger event than we've hosted the previous two times.
Okay. Well, let's use a LinkedIn post from 2 months ago from the chamber.
Oh, sweet heaven.
Where it was Wake Up, It's Worker Wednesday. and you are the subject.
There we go.
This is a little bit of a way to intro you because naturally, well, I'm just going to read it first. Okay. So it says, Ashley-Engels-Ross is our Vice President of Small Business. This means she handles all of our networking and professional development series events throughout the year, such as Breakfast and Biz, Business and Brews, Best Places to Work Awards, Small Business Awards, Doing Business with the FBI, and much more. Ashley also helps manage the Women's Business Council. She is constantly coming up with new ideas for our community, and we are grateful to have her on our team. And the Paralympics, then, does that fall into the and much more?
No, that is not my much more. That goes on over to Aaron Koshoot with Cummings Research Park.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So you were just helping promote that.
Absolutely. That's one of the really cool things about the chamber is we all... we're not a huge group of people, but as you were talking about, always there's always something happening. There is always something happening monthly. For my department, it's every month, and then our government affairs has stuff on a lot, and then Aaron with Cummings Research Park. So we always have stuff going on, and we're always encouraging and promoting each other's events. And you can find probably a majority of us at each one of those events.
So some commentary, please, on the picture on the right.
Sweet heaven. Were you at the Small Business Awards last year?
No, I didn't. No, I was not.
Okay.
I was
Anybody can go
right.
and support their fellow small business owners.
Sure.
But okay, so this was my first Small Business Awards because I started at the Chamber last January. So that was my first Small Business Awards. And we were launching a new, so this is in much more or new ideas. So I decided we always want to promote shop local. And I thought a shop local campaign right at the holiday time, right? Because that was the end of September.
Yeah.
So we launched Shop Localopoly.
Yes.
And if that sounds familiar, it should sound like Monopoly. I didn't know how hard it would be for people to say, but it is Localopoly, and we launched it that night. So I can honestly say that was probably the first time I was ever in front of so many people nervous. Like I'm pretty comfortable standing up in front of people. I have fun. It doesn't really bother me. But for that right there, I got nervous and I had to run down the center aisle. You saw my little top hat.
Yeah.
And I was throwing Monopoly money that wouldn't come out of my hand, by the way. Like it was all sticking together. So right at the very end, when I got to the stage, like those two front tables right there, they got nailed.
Oh, really?
They got all the money that was left in my hands that I could not throw out fast enough. So I was announcing Shop Localopoly, and we were handing out Localopoly boards to everybody that was there. And
well, guess what?
What?
I actually have the clip.
Oh, no!
Here we go.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know if I've ever watched it.
Hey there, everyone. I'm Ashley-engels-Ross, the Vice President of Small Business here at the Huntsville-Madison County Chamber of Commerce. You have already received some emails, maybe even some phone calls, asking you if you'd like to participate in Shop Localopoly this holiday season. Shop Localopoly is our Shop Local campaign that we will be announcing on November 1st at the Small Business Awards. And we are hoping that you will participate. It is our intention to promote local businesses and to promote local spending. So please don't delay. Sign up for the board today. You can register online. You drop off your gift card with us and then send us your logo and we will get you on that board.
Yes.
Those boards will be handed out for the first time at the Small Business Awards to over 1,000 people. And from then on out, we will promote this campaign all through November with fun drawing on December 1st. So please register today, participate in our Shop Localopoly, and we will see you soon.
I almost wore that outfit.
Today?
That
would have been great.
I almost wore that shirt today. And I stopped wearing those bracelets when they were recording me because of all the jingling that I do.
I think it had a little bit of an appropriate Christmas feel. With
the
jingling.
It's true.
But that's a quick still shot at the end, though. I like the whole logo, the dice, and
thank you. Yeah,
and the top hat.
We have a really incredible marketing team. That was Christy Sherrard. She works with Claire Aiello in our marketing department, and they just do an awesome job. And they're very kind and sweet and courteous and forgiving of can we but maybe a different font could be. Yeah.
How many takes did that take you to shoot?
You know what? I think we only did that a couple of times. We have something else coming out for Small Business Week. That'll be the first week of May. And so we've shot a couple more videos. And it's funny. I kind of figure out what I'm going to say, and then we just go for it. And Kayla Brown is the young woman that helps us do that, and she does an awesome job. Those I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. It's usually maybe 2 or 3 times. But for what we have coming up on Small Business Week, we had to go to a radio station.
Okay.
Yo, radio people really sound good. Welcome the new 99.1, and I don't sound like that. And now I know I don't sound like that. And I got so tongue-tied. I was like, I can't do this in front of professionals.
Did you have a script?
Harder. No. I just had to introduce myself and introduce them and say what we were talking about. And that one was a little bit harder. But Kayla made it look pretty good, even when I was drenched in rain and everything else. So it's pretty funny. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I saw that and I was like, I hope we get a chance to play that at some point.
You will.
And just as the
It'll be
conversation
coming back.
guide,
Oh, the
that one
clip.
we just played. Because some of it's that was last year, but lessons learned.
That's right.
You're always going to learn. Okay, what do you have something different planned maybe for this year, and what's that spend going to be? And if you do the Monopoly things, figure out how to make the money actually fly out of your hands.
Fly out of my hands. Well, this year,
down.
fortunately, I won't have to do that again at the Small Business Awards.
Okay.
But we are going to do it again. And people will have a little, what we learned when you talk about what you learned. So we learned that we need to give people a little bit more time to shop. And so we're going to launch it a little bit sooner. But the Small Business Awards isn't as late this year. We're kind of coming out of COVID, like everybody talks about. We're getting back on the normal schedule. So this year, the Small Business Awards will be at the end of September, which, by the way, nominations are open. Woohoo!
That's right.
Nominate yourself.
Well, there's your thing. It's open through the 28th.
That is correct.
And how are they flowing in? Are they flooding in?
We had as of last, I think it was Friday when I checked, we were at 300. And so I'm really looking to break the 400 nomination mark this year. And there's duplicates in there. And right, anytime you go out for nominations, our Small Business Awards are unique. Once we confirm that the nominee is a member and all that good jazz, we send them an email with an application, a link to an application in it. Then we collect all of the applications, and those applications are sent out. This year, they're going to go to a chamber in Houston, Texas, that's going to score them for us. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And we've always, or at least in the short time that I've been here, and my predecessor sent applications outside of our region to be scored. So, right, you always see we have 400 applicants, then we might have, or we have 400 nominees, then we have 200 applications. So we're really just this year trying to get as many nominations as we can, and then follow up as best we can. We're going to do a couple, I think, like live video calls, Zoom. They're not Zoom, Teams calls to let people know how to best fill out those applications this year. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff.
That's cool. Now, are there any, looking at the categories here, and if it's easier to see it there or over my head, I'm not sure for you.
Okay.
But
that's why I brought it with me.
I don't know are there any new categories or any of them taken away?
You know what? That's a great question. Thanks for that. We do have, we have construction, manufacturing of the year. We broadened some of the categories. So last year you would have seen a culinary only. Well, this year it's more of a hospitality category. The reason that we did that is to encourage more applicants in each category. Last year we actually had 2 categories that didn't make. So this year, we're really hoping that kind of by consolidating and broadening, that doesn't, I guess, sound like it makes sense, but broadening the categories, we'll be able to get more applicants within each. We also expanded. We've always had a woman-owned category, but we now have a veteran-owned category as well as minority-owned category. So we have introduced some new ones, and then kind of I keep saying consolidated, but made categories broader.
Yeah. Okay. Expanded.
Yes. Thank you.
That's cool. And it was cool. I know, and your website's awesome. The chamber it's full of great information, and I don't know if we'll
go Claire.
I mean, it really is. It's really impressive, and maybe later if it comes up, we can go through it. But certainly, I know that I had never looked at a chamber website in the past as we considered a place to live. But man, there is so much information in there. It's not just here's the census data, but as of January, there's all of the stuff as far as Huntsville goes, and tying that to current economic conditions and outlooks and forecasts, and who are all the employers that are here and how many people do they employ, on and on and on. It's fantastic.
Thank you. And that really speaks to the uniqueness of the Huntsville Chamber.
Yeah.
We have an incredible economic development team. And when I say incredible, these people are not only wicked smart and know the community very well and understand what they're talking about, and can engage with companies that are here or looking to come here, can engage with the city, can talk even to international folks about what we have, what we're doing, and where we're going. They love where they are.
Yeah.
They love Huntsville. Lucia Cape is our senior vice president of economic development. She absolutely loves being here. She is an advocate for the city. Her kids go to school here. She can tell you 102 different things to do, both socially and professionally. I mean, it's just it's a real. And Claire Aiello, our vice president of marketing, she's the same way. I mean, they love this community, and they want to do everything that they can to promote it and encourage and help our community. So.
Yeah. In fact, when I have it up, so I want to. This is what I like about it. So you have like this category, but then within there, it's almost like its own PowerPoint, right? And you scroll through, and this is really well done. And I can appreciate good code and good website development, and this is just really clean and nice. And then here you get to, this is dated because this is the census, but at the time it showed us we were the 18th fastest growing market in the country, and maybe we've moved up even in the matter of 3 years. And so there's some good stuff here. And then you get down to as of January 2023, as I was just mentioning, here's this economic update, and here's some highlights, and here's our recent news. According to U.S. News, we're the top place to live and get some employment. And then you jump down here to workforce. This is really well done.
Yes.
And there's just so much information in here, and all these tables.
Yeah, they do. It's like I said.
And there's Lucia.
Yeah, it's funny. I had the opportunity. They use these. I mean, those are presentations that they use when we go out and talk to other companies outside of the region, really internationally. And so those are, a lot of that information is stuff that we use on a regular basis.
How much, going back to just looking at the top on branding it a smart place, how long has that been in place? Do you have any idea?
A smart place, that was a very long process. I'm afraid, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I think it was launched last year, right around the time that I started.
Okay.
Just, links to job boards, incredible information about all the things that you've already talked about. So yeah, that was redone last year, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it would be interesting to see what getting in behind the scenes of any places, how often do they want to rebrand? Is that every 5 years? And like any business, any organization, what's the outlook? I've been fortunate to be able to interview Sarah James from Tarcog, and John Allen from Committee of 100, and Rob Hamilton and Ethan, all tied to Launch 2035, and John Joseph and Tony Eberhardt, where they're already talking, even though it's launched 2035, they're talking about getting together and going out to like 2050 or even going beyond.
Right.
Saying, okay, like we've got a pretty good firm plan as far as like the Singing River Trail, John Kavach, and that's a big piece of that. But already, we're only at 2023, but they want to keep planning beyond 2035.
Yes.
And so that's, I think in Huntsville, it's trying to keep pace. And perhaps, I just had Mark Brazil from Mazda Toyota here. Yes. And I think they're already, going beyond the numbers and the figures of things that they thought. Or Chad Emerson. Like it seems like any business that's being built here, their numbers are being met or they're exceeding their initial targets much sooner than they had anticipated.
Okay.
So then you have to go and kind of revisit, okay, well, maybe we were too conservative.
Right.
What's the aggressive thing look like?
Well, and I mean, for certain here in particular, our city has done such an incredible job. I mean, holy smokes, the planning and forethought that's gone into everything that we're experiencing. And I think you'll always hear the mayor, everyone's always talking about 10 years down the road or further. And that, right, that's just that kind of strategic planning, and your actions today have to be looking towards your next goal. And as you said, if you're already meeting those goals, hopefully you already knew what you were going to do 5 years from now, because then you got to start looking at even farther down the road. So yeah.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about Ashley then. Let's kind of go back so we can understand. You said you've only been here in your job for about as long as I think I've been here, about a year and a half.
Yeah, I started January.
With the chamber. Mm-hmm. Now, you've lived in Huntsville longer than that, of course.
Yeah.
But let me ask this question first. We just established before we came on the air that your son and my son go to James Clemens High School.
Right.
I think you live somewhat close to here. Did you go to the mud run this past Saturday?
I didn't.
No.
I was at a basketball tournament south of Birmingham in Hoover. Yeah, but that is something that would be totally up my alley, and I would have loved to have done that, but I didn't get to do it. A lot of my friends were there, but
I caught it last year. My son,
oh yeah?
My son and I did it last year, and I'm seeing all the pictures coming in of people that were all muddied, and it looks like they had a couple different features this year on how you cross the creek, and and we had intended to go, but we didn't get to go. And this is the Madison Academy Mud Run, and it benefited. I know at least it benefited First Stop.
Okay,
I had Jessica Brown on here from First Stop at some point, and Thru. Gosh, I forgot Drew's last name. He's also a volunteer firefighter. I apologize, Thru. I'm drawing a blank, but he also works at First Stop.
Okay.
And I know that they were the beneficiaries of a lot of the money raised. But it is a really cool 5K.
Oh, I would imagine.
It was just so cool.
I haven't done.
And so muddy.
Yeah, it did look exceptionally muddy. Yes, I haven't done a race like those. Like intentionally, like maybe some trail runs, but those like getting dirty.
Yeah.
I haven't done that since we lived in Colorado. Yeah.
Like a Spartan or like a
I've never done a Spartan or any of those, but they have those kind of adventure type races where you're running through a creek. It was the first time it's a fun run, and somebody like pushed me underwater, like, get out of my way. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing today. So, I haven't done any, but I would have loved to have done that. And I had a lot of friends say, are you going? Are you running? Are you doing? And I couldn't do it this weekend.
There's definitely that moment where you're running along, because when you start on that one, you start down in the football field.
Okay.
And you run up the stands. This is what they did it last year.
Okay.
And you kind of run through the parking lot. And you're like, okay, like, this is cool. Like, when are we going to get to the mud? And so you do a couple, like, obstacles. There were some monkey bars and whatever. And then they had a couple features. So the first at least half mile or 3/4 of a mile is before you get to, like, the stream. Okay. And as soon as you cross the stream, then it's on.
Yeah.
Then it's Mud City. Because you get back into that area of easement between, like, Mustang or the Madison Academy and, I guess, John Paul II.
Okay.
And there's this.
Oh, I wondered where they did it. Okay.
There's like equestrian trails back there and stuff, but it's just this forested area, right? Easement type thing between the two properties. And I don't really know who owns what, but then even though you're like, no, it's a mud run, you've kind of conditioned yourself like, okay, this isn't too bad.
Yeah.
And then you see that first like mud bog and you're like, here we go. Like it's on. And is the what's the water going to feel like? Is it going to be cold? Is someone going to push me down?
Yeah.
And then you just have to transition into like, all right, this isn't normally necessarily a run anymore where I'm trying for time.
Right.
Now I'm filthy, I'm wet, and it turns into more, fun.
Yeah. That's funny. I remember a race. This was actually in Austin. So this was way back, a long time ago. This might have been pre-children, as a matter of fact. And, on those courses, they've got all these random like picture taking, and we're coming up out of the water. So we've swam. And apparently there must have been goo, dirt, mud in the water. And so you've got all these people giving you directions like, look up at the camera. And then somebody else has a hose and they're like, wait. And they're like, trying to clean off your face before you look up at the camera because mud,
It's bad when there's certain things that just take your shoe off, and they were warning us like tie your shoe really tight before you come into here. Like, oh, you can't be serious. And sure enough, it's like stepping into like cement, and it just comes right off if you're not careful.
Yeah. What was that? You remember your kids? Was it at Camp McDowell, or was it the other one that they went to? Like my son came home missing a shoe.
Oh, really?
And I was like,
how do you miss a shoe?
How does this happen? Where did it go? It got sucked off in the mud. I was like, nobody, what do we do with it? I just left it there. I didn't want anyone, Okay. When did that happen? The first day we had one shoe all weekend, or what was what happened there? I don't know. Still don't know to this day, as a matter of fact.
So you were born in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And you say most of your family on your side still live in Pittsburgh area?
Well, they did for a long time. Now people have spread out down into Florida, and we've got some family in Washington, D.C. We've even got some family out in California. But
really?
Yeah, it is definitely home. I took my kids up to the University of Pittsburgh's homecoming this past year. It was just kind of fun to see them, and I think they had fun seeing me kind of at my alma mater. But we met up with some of my aunts that are still up there in their family, and I definitely, you know, when you go home, right, there's always that excitement of just seeing
how
stuff
big
that
is the
you
tree
love.
in the yard or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and we didn't get to do any of that stuff. My family moved north of Pittsburgh when I got to 8th grade. So a smaller town called Grove City, which I think now is probably, I'm not speaking, this is not truth. This is an assumption by Ashley that it's probably a lot like a suburb. Like I would imagine, given how commutes go, there's probably a lot of people that live up in Grove City that work down in Pittsburgh now. But so I didn't take them up there, but we weren't there for very long. But it was really neat to show them the campus and visit with family, and that was just fun.
Now, what did your parents do in Pittsburgh? Which before 8th grade, they were both working?
They both work. Actually, no, my mom did not work. My mom was a teacher, and then came home, and my dad was a salesman for a couple different companies. Akron Tire Supply is the one that stands out the most for him, and he traveled all over the place. So if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of when we moved, it was about kind of access to interstates and being able to get out. So when I was in middle school, and then we decided to move north of Pittsburgh to Grove City, my mom did go back to teaching. So she started teaching in the high school up there. And we were right on the interstate. We had access to 79 and Interstate 80. So it was very easy for my dad to go north or south or east and west. And so I think it's 79. Anyway,
it comes up through Morgantown.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's when we went up there, and my mom went back to work. That was fun. I was in 8th grade, but then my mom and I were pretty new, still new to the community and in high school together. So yeah, my poor mom.
What does she teach?
Home ec.
Oh, wow.
Home ec, which this is hysterical. My son, he's going to be so upset with me. He is taking home ec. And I know, I remember my mom would talk about kids that they thought that home ec was going to be the easy, no problem, know, and you do all the measurement, you do all of that stuff first before you do any of the cooking and stuff. And he was like, this is not an easy A. What the heck? He was hot. But then all of a sudden he comes home and he's like, hey, do we have any lemonade? And I need some strawberries. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I got a recipe. And it was a smoothie. And he was really excited about it. I said, babe, we need to write these down. You need to remember this. You're going to wish you remembered this one day. Yeah.
Was it a full year, or was it? I know.
No, it's just
it was a semester.
A semester or an 8 weeks,
a quarter.
Yeah. However they do their electives now, which is very different. It's this block schedule. I didn't have a block schedule. I don't know. My kids are very intolerant of all of my questions about, what do you mean? When does this? How long is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I home ec was going great for me. I think I took it in 7th grade, and I think it was
that's when I took it.
It might have been a quarter. I don't really know if it was a semester. I enjoyed it though. Until we got to the sewing part, and we just had to make. It was a simple T-shirt with a pocket. seem reasonable, and that you give you a pattern and you cut it out, and it's just something. And I think I would sew at home with my mom. Like, I think I did some simple stitching just to kind of learn how to use the machine. And we did the machine at school, but when it came to like putting that pocket on, it didn't turn out great. And the teacher she helped me, but she had to like rip it all apart, and
pocket's not easy. I think they kind of hosed you there.
I guess.
That's a pocket.
I don't remember if I chose it or like, I don't know if we all had to do that or it was just one of like 4 things to choose from. But for some reason I was like, oh, that'll be fine. I'll put a pocket on a t-shirt.
I only had to make a pillow.
Oh, really?
It was a good looking pillow, but that's all I had to do. And I don't think he has to sew.
Huh.
Unless how could it be coming up? They're almost done. I don't know. All I know
cooking?
about, I think it's just cooking and, but I mean, I think for the most part, he's gotten through it and we've giggled about the cooking stuff and it's just, he's not a big eater. So you're just like, oh Lord, they're going to make you cook and you're not going to eat anything. What the heck? Yeah. But I think he has done pretty, they made chicken tenders. Like I think they looked up Jack's typical menu and they made everything that he would eat.
Well, your mom must have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Because it's such a different class than someone like hating math or hating science or hating English. And then they assume they're going to go into this class and it's going to stink and they've never had a good teacher. Where home ec is like, home ec, you get one shot at it.
Yeah.
And, everyone has to eat.
Right.
And once you've tasted good food, you kind of want to have good food,
That's right.
From there on.
Well, I said to my son, just so you know, this is probably going to be the class you remember the most.
Yeah.
Because you're going to use it every day.
That in shop class.
Yes. I'm so glad that I had to do all this. I made a wicked stool. I think my parents still have it in their garage. I made some cool stuff.
We had a lamp. We just brought in a can, and I brought a Gatorade can. It like literally was like a 12-ounce can. And that was like the base, like that lamp back there, right? And then we wired it, and I used it for a long time. And then my little brother, at times would get mad at me and just break stuff on purpose, and he like just crunched the can. But I was like, dude, it was a perfectly good lamp. Yeah. I made that lamp, and it was unique and different.
Yes.
I was really proud of it.
I bet so. I think we made one too. Like I can see it. Our shop teacher must have focused a lot on wood.
Yeah.
Because it was all cutting, sanding, staining, gluing, with the gizmos,
Did you do the thing? There was like this, I don't even know what the shape was. Kind of like a triangle shape in the golf tees, and it was a game. Like the pegs.
The Cracker Barrel game. We never made one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have them at Cracker Barrel.
Yep. No, we never made them. But I did. I loved those classes. And I think for my mom, I just remember that her student, once they were cooking, it was always better.
Yeah.
The classwork, the learning stuff was always a pain. I never took her class when I was in high school. That just was a recipe for disaster, and we both knew it. And we
no
didn't
pun
do
intended.
It. Yeah. Oh, I'm good. I never took it, but I just remember she would be telling stories. We would have to stop at the grocery store. Bilo was the grocery store.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I had friends that worked there, but I hated how it smelled. And we would always have to go. And if I wanted it to go fast, then I had to run in and grab the bag of flour or grab whatever she needed for her students that day. But anyways, her story, it was always a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Then, you could tell that the students were having a lot more fun by then.
So then ultimately, as you get into high school, what's your thing? What was your strong suit?
Oh, I don't know if anything was like I was a cheerleader.
Okay.
So I did that. And I did theater.
Okay.
Actually. So I did both of those were kind of the extracurriculars. And then I worked at a small restaurant, locally owned restaurant. And then I ended up working at McDonald's.
Okay.
It was hot. It was the center of town. So,
I respect that.
I was a wicked at the drive-thru.
I bet. McDonald's has always been the leader in like, I guess it's not just technology, but process.
Yeah.
And division of labor. And
yeah,
I've always been
amazed.
amazed.
Chick-fil-A.
No.
We weren't competing with Chick-fil-A.
But the thing that always amazed me, I don't know if you can comment, but somehow like the person taking your order somehow would like do it on their belt.
Yeah.
Just on like some sort of little computer there. And I would like, how do you do that? Normally, you go up to the counter and they push a bunch of buttons for something you want. And then all of a sudden they're just like, they're listening to you and like, how do they get this in the system?
There's 2 registers.
No, but like sometimes they're just like on their belt.
Well, yeah, you just have to remember so that when you get over to the register.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. They just have good memories.
Yes. Yeah, it's a real task in multitasking because you're taking the order and then you're also getting money. And I have an awesome story.
Sure.
So I worked in college as well, and I first went to a smaller state school called Clarion, and so I was working, and I could walk right into McDonald's and get a job. So I was working in McDonald's doing the drive-through, and like you said, I was taking the order, and I was taking one order, and then I was about to get money from the person at the window, and I turned to look out the window, and there was a deer.
Whoa.
Staring at me, and I screamed at the top of my lungs. I mean, it scared me to death and ducked. And the way this McDonald's was set up, everyone in the front could see me. And so I screamed bloody murder and ducked and covered my head. And everyone in the restaurant could see what was going on, which all I saw, right, was just that there was a deer right there. They were hunters, and it was strapped to the roof of the car. Oh my gosh. And I was like, ah! And then, everyone's laughing. So obviously it's not someone out there to kill me.
Yeah.
So,
the deer's dead.
I look up, the deer's dead. He's not coming in. And he's not coming in. And I then proceed to laugh so hard. I can't gain my composure. I can't talk. I can't do anything at that point. And the whole place, thank you. That was the entertainment for the evening. And it was completely unintentional, but yeah. And then, then they started coming through. Obviously it was the season. My parents don't hunt. I got nothing. I have no experience with this at all.
Right.
I remember seeing a deer, and it's a struggle for me. I'm not even going to lie. And one fella came through, and it was strapped to the hood of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's commitment right there. What happens under there? Oh. But anyways, yeah, that was still to this day. That is my McDonald's memory.
And that was in the city. Where's Clarion? What city is that in?
Clarion, Pennsylvania.
That's what's in Clarion.
Cook's Forest. Okay. Yeah, it's.
And that's where that all went down.
That's where that went down. Yeah. I was there for 2 years, and then I transferred to Pitt. Mm-hmm.
Here, I want to tell you a funny experience I had. It was at a car wash, but this is the most embarrassed I've ever been. It was this is the early 90s. So this was just the beginning of truly full service car washes, where in this case you would pull up and get out of your car and they just take it from there, and they'll vacuum it. They'll do the undercarriage. They do all this stuff. Then they put it somebody puts it on the belt to put the car in neutral. They put it on the belt. On the other side, you have someone who receives the car, and they're also laundering all of the towels that we're using. Mm-hmm. And so they'll do a little bit of it if there's not a lot of cars coming out as that car comes out before, and then they'll dry it off, just do a little bit of a dry off. And then they get in the car and they drive it out to the people who are now going to, they're going to do the tire shine. Yeah. They're going to do your windows. Mm-hmm. They're actually going to clean the door jams. Yeah. They're going to open up all the doors in the trunk and clean all that. And then they hand it over to the customer. Right. So I was working the receive coming off the belt. And the hardest part was just keeping up with the laundry, just all these towels. Cause as they get, because then they're going to do the final dry out where they're doing the tire shine. Anyway, all has to get laundered. And then, but it was always fun because then you get to drive all these cars. Even though we only got to drive them 30 feet, it was still fun. Sure. And it was good for me because I could drive stick. My car was a manual. And so people that couldn't drive manual, you couldn't be on that. You couldn't do that job because you had to drive the cars out. So I got to drive it. I got to drive a Porsche today or BMW that's stick. Well, it was a busy Saturday, and it's just, you just get into your routine, and all of a sudden there's this guy is screaming. The guy who puts the cars onto the belt is screaming down through the tunnel at me like, get out of the way, get out of the way. There were 2 cars already in the system, in the tunnel, and he had accidentally knocked this other car into drive. So it's going in and now pushing the other 2 cars that are in neutral towards me, right? And they're not going to stop unless somebody stops that car, and you can't, because it's going through the tunnel, and they're coming really fast. Now, they're intended to move that quickly through, so they're just like, they're bouncing around, and they're just damaging things left and right. It's just, they're just forging this trail.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm standing there, and the customers, we had this whole thing with like a tip jar, and the customers could sit on the bench on a nice day and wait for their car to come out, and we'd probably give them a soda or some cookies or something. And they're all sitting, on this bench next to this tip jar. They probably have already put their tip in. I'm not sure. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, do I turn into Superman and try to like stop the one car? And the guy's like, just get out of the way. So I like, ole, I just like, I let it go by. 1, 2, 3, and then they all come out, and then the property was kind of built up, and there was a fence, and it just crashes through the fence, and it just kind of hangs there on this like concrete block, and then the other 2 cars pile up behind it. And there's just a crash scene at the car wash.
Gosh.
And I'm the one that's like, I mean, it's not my fault, but I'm like, what do you do?
Yeah. Oh, and the owners were right there with you.
Everyone eventually comes out, but you're just kind of looking at the people, and you remember, was it Southwest? You used to do those commercials
awful.
Like, do you want to get away? Like at that moment, you just want to get away. You're like, I don't know what to do. So then it was shut down for 3 days because they did like, it was like $700,000 in damage. It was almost, they had to almost rebuild the entire tunnel. Like everything got damaged.
Oh my gosh.
It was really bad.
Did you see, there's a brand new one that opened down 72 right by the...
They're opening like every other day, it seems like.
Yeah, I know. But this one's real elaborate.
A real big one.
Like I think there's a restaurant or a bar inside, and there's all kinds of activity. But it was quite a venture, extremely expensive, and every time I drive through one of those, right, I'm always like, what would happen? Because now, right, when you drive through, and I'm always like, boy, some of them, they've been working a long time, and they're very comfortable at pulling those cars in like right behind each other, bam, 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 and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my god, I'm waiting for that light at the end to turn green so I can whip it into drive and accelerate, and I don't get killed in the process. Well,
no, and the one we go to, there's just like a little bit of cushion, and they're always like, come on, I'm like, I just want to wait. I'd rather just sit here and wait.
Let me take the next cycle.
Yeah, because and then they're like, no, come on. So they like wave you down, and you're like, it seems like you're almost on the bumper.
Yeah.
And then put it in neutral, and sometimes those little things have to like catch, and I'm just waiting for there to be an accident.
See, it's interesting. It's kind of a stressful situation.
Yeah.
It does generate a little bit of, and that in particular, when they're pulling, and the last time I went, I mean, this just goes to show you, right? I'm watching the belt.
Yeah.
Like, let me see. How does this work? When does that come up? And the whole process of making sure your tires get on there.
Right.
The whole very technical.
Yeah.
This way.
And then when they don't, and your car like hits the thing.
Yeah. It's so it's stressful.
Well, I would say about 2 or 3 washes ago, and I don't remember. I don't think it was in my car. I think it was in my daughter's car. Thank goodness, because her car's a little smaller. And I actually did not put it in neutral accidentally. So it was in drive, and it was trying to like climb over the thing.
Yes.
And I finally realized it and put it into neutral. But that could have been bad.
Well, I once put it in reverse.
Oh god. And
then they they give you that look, and you're like, oh my god, and you redo it, and then I've done that. And then there's just that part of you, that little part of your brain that's like, what would happen if I put my windows down?
Yeah, well, I guess that's on you. There's probably some sign when you enter at your own risk, and hey, put your windows down all you want. Windows down.
Well, but I have a Jeep, and so we have driven the Jeep with puddles inside of it because we didn't get the lid on fast enough. So.
Well, apparently, if you haven't noticed, but apparently those are huge money makers, those car washes, and that's why they're just popping up everywhere.
We just about have one on every block. Whatever
I think the word is
on 72.
There's at least some. I can't verify this, but some person who says, hey, they put in I don't know, they bought one for $800,000 and they sold it a year later for $2 million, and those types of like crazy returns. And that's why they're popping up, because it cost, they say $1 to wash your car, and they're getting you on the monthly plan.
Yep.
You might really go 2 or 3 times. I don't know if it's $1, if it's $2, but in theory, it's pretty inexpensive for them, their cost. Mm-hmm. And that's why everybody has one. Even Buc-ee's has one.
I saw that the other day.
Yeah, and that's normally when you're traveling, you don't necessarily think about that, but maybe if you're traveling, they've come across something where, hey, why don't we just put a car wash in, and they're going to pay for gas anyway, and you can vacuum real quick and then go on with your journey.
Well, and even
dead bugs on the windshield.
Oh, the dead bug. Yeah, my wife.
I was just about to say, I have a Jeep.
Yeah.
So my windshield is like straight up and down. I mean, like I look bugs in the eye as they zoom, and they hit you. Bam, 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 bam. I mean, right now, I told you I went back and forth to Hoover twice this weekend. My windshield, I can't wait to go drive through a car wash. And so I totally would drive through at Buc-ee's to clean that puppy up.
Yeah.
And then when we were there, I had to laugh. Like it was Christmas Day and my daughter and I went, and it was really kind of a sick, like, let's just go see what it's like. And when those cars have come through snow and the salt and the, I mean, I could totally see driving through one just to kind of clean up. Once you got here into the cleaner, probably not going to deal with too much more salt on the road and all of that. So, but you said something when you were working at the car wash about driving all those different kinds of cars. So before I got to the chamber, I worked at the botanical garden.
Oh, yeah.
And at the garden, you have different sponsors, and Mercedes was a sponsor out there for a while, and they would come bring their cars, and we might have to move them, or we might have to take them back.
Here we go.
I couldn't like, it was all of the equipment, like all of the drive, all of that. I think it was up at the steering wheel.
Oh, right.
And I didn't know that.
Like paddle shifting and paddle.
So I'm in the car, all the windows are up. Nothing operates like anything in my vehicle. And I'm like knocking on the window to my coworker who's in the other one. I'm like, I can't get anywhere. How does it work?
It's like,
and ever since we went and test drove a Mercedes, and I got out of it feeling the exact same way. I was like, if it's going to take me months to figure out how this dadgum thing works, I really just need to put it in drive, reverse, or park.
Well, I think that's the case right now with Teslas. If you've never driven one, and like I had a buddy who came in, I work for Mantech, and he comes in down for a visit and visits some customers, and they have him rent a Tesla. And he's like, well, what do you do?
I can totally relate.
And they basically, I think he told me, and I don't own one. I actually drove that one around a little bit just to like, like, let me drive one, because
I've never
at
been
some
in
point
one.
I'm going to feel like an idiot. But you don't like really turn on anything. I mean, the key, you sit in it and you just go. And then you stop and you get out, right? And it's just so counterintuitive to our brains that want to turn something or push something. You don't have to do any of that.
How do you?
It just goes. It just like kind of turns on because of the key fob.
Okay.
And it awakens or whatever. And it's
Do you accelerate with pedals?
Yeah, it's kind of like driving a golf cart. You don't really have to touch the brake.
Oh.
You kind of like accelerate, and then when you let off the car, you'll feel it. It'll just slow down. So you're really just kind of pushing the gas. Always. You should never have to really touch the brake. Unless it's like a sudden, okay, I have to stop.
Right.
But if you're just going through traffic and normal stuff, you should be able to slow down by just letting go of the gas, and it just slows down on its own.
Oh boy, that would take a long time for me to get used.
And somehow that's how the battery charges as well. It's through that process.
Okay.
But yeah, you're going to feel like an idiot if you like rent a Tesla and you want to act cool, like, oh yeah, I've been into a Tesla before, and you're like, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
How do I get out of here?
Yeah, that is not my go-to for looking cool. I'm usually getting in like, what? How does this operate? What do I do now?
So let's fast forward to Fort Bliss.
Okay.
So do you? So you graduate from Pittsburgh, you get your undergrad there, and at some point you said you met your husband at Fort Bliss.
I did.
Texas.
I did.
Were you in when you were also in the service.
I was.
Okay. So let's talk about that. When do you go into the service after college? Did you do like an ROTC thing? Let's talk about getting into the Army.
First of all, my dad served in Vietnam. My grandfathers were in World War II. I had an uncle that served. So I was always fascinated, but I mean, it was Vietnam for my dad. So my dad didn't talk a whole lot about it, but he got like a yearbook and all. So I got to see all of that stuff. So I was always curious and interested in serving. When I got in, what had happened was I graduated from Pitt. I was set to go to graduate school at Pitt. I had an apartment. I had a job. And then I looked at my loan repayment and realized how much I had already accumulated in debt and that I was planning to do the same thing for graduate school. And I thought, I'm a social work major. This is not a good idea. And I originally went to join the Navy, but that didn't work out. And I ended up in the Army, and they had a loan repayment program at the time. So I had to enlist. But I was going to I had to go through medic training and then a psych tech because I was a social work major and I had already done a lot of work in that. So that was how I got in. My plan was always to go in and to apply for some kind of scholarship. Green to Gold was the one that I thought of to go to graduate school. That was my plan, which is actually what I did. My first assignment was at Fort Bliss. I got a Green to Gold scholarship. So, and by that time I met my husband. I thought I was going to go back to Pitt. But like I said, I met my husband. He was an air defender at that time. Fort Bliss was the home of air defense. And so, I stayed there and I ended up going to UTEP, go Miners. And so, that's how that was Fort Bliss. And then then I decided not to pursue a commission, ended up getting out, got a HUD scholarship to finish my master's degree. And then we bounced between Fort Bliss and Fort Hood, Fort Bliss, Fort Hood, and then eventually jumped up to Colorado and then landed over here in Alabama. But I was stationed at the hospital, William Beaumont Army Medical Center. I worked on the psychiatric ward there.
Wow. So you did 4 years?
I was 2 years active, and then I was a year in the reserves.
Okay.
Yeah. That was part of I was in the Green to Gold.
And it worked out well that you were able to finish at UTEP at this and coincide with him, whatever he was doing before you got orders to get shipped out somewhere.
I actually ended up finishing my master's program from Fort Hood.
Okay.
I actually finished my paper, your final, my master's thesis. I actually finished that from a distance while we were at Fort Hood.
Okay. Let's go to this. So you piqued my interest on the psychiatric ward.
Oh, boy.
Now, where was this again?
That was at William Beaumont Army Medical Center.
William Beaumont. Okay.
And that was probably, I don't know, probably it's my naivety, but that this is before 9/11. This is before we got too terribly involved or committed to mental health. And so we were still, I think the service was still very much working through that and identifying a lot of those things. But yeah, I worked on the psychiatric ward. And what was unique about Fort Bliss is that Fort Bliss, you also have White Sands Missile Range. And so you're, what do they call it? I think like the triad or something like that. So you've got a lot of people coming in doing training missions. Then you also have at that time, Fort Bliss is a lot different now, but at that time there were training battalions and brigades there for air defense. And then, the folks that obviously worked at Fort Bliss. So
this is soldiers, maybe even within the Gulf War, that have PTSD and struggling with, or just life in general,
I think it
life
was
in the service?
The things that I remember seeing most were just life in the service.
Okay.
Life in the service. We had a couple we actually had, I really can only say that I remember one in particular. He was a Vietnam veteran that ended up on the floor, but a lot of folks, it was just life in general. But then too, that's a time, young soldiers, that's a point for schizophrenia and things like that. There's, those can kind of peak at that age sometimes. So we had some of those as well.
So how did you meet Jeff?
Jim.
Sorry.
Jim, that's okay. Jeff? Jim, that's okay. We had a friend. Okay. Oh boy, I don't even know.
Here we go.
So I dabbled in rugby.
Did you?
I did. See, don't ask me positions. You had to throw the ball backwards. You got the ball, you got into scrum. Hold on. And everybody pushed you. Like, that's all I got.
Now, hold on. You got into rugby because
I was looking for stuff to do.
You were looking for a guy or something to do.
Just looking for stuff, really just looking for stuff to do.
Okay.
And I don't even remember how I met all of them, but I always ran and I would find races and go run in races, and I didn't always run. That started really in the service. I was running. And so I honestly don't remember how I met all of them, but I met them and they were like, hey, oh, yes, it was okay. So my husband's roommate at the time, but I didn't know that. Anyways, I started playing rugby with this gal, and she was the roommate. She was the girlfriend of one of my husband's roommates, and that's how I met him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love at first sight?
I don't know. Yeah, you know what? We kind of did. We hit it off pretty well. You have a lot of things. You're, I'm on a completely different side of the country. Jim had been in much longer. He knew the service very well. He worked at the NCO Academy, which was at that time at Fort Bliss, might still be, I don't know. And so he had Jim is very smart, and he had an understanding of his career in the service that I did not have yet, right? Mm-hmm. When you work in the hospital, it's very different than being in other parts of the serving in different capacities. So that was, he could, if I had a question or I didn't understand something, or, he'd be like, well, why are you doing this? Or why are you, and I would be like, what are you talking about? I'm going to work every day. I'm doing what I'm supposed to, So, yeah, I think we had a lot. His family's from Michigan. So, he was traveling, he would have to travel across the country if he wanted to see them. My family obviously was in Pennsylvania. So we had a lot of things. He was very athletic and ran all the time. And yeah, we had fun. It was fine. Yeah, it was good. We had finally had somebody to do things with, and it was fun.
So talk me through the career as a military spouse, the places you went, and what were the things that either work or volunteer work, kind of along the way, and what were some of those highlights?
So, I finished my master's degree. I was working, we were at Fort Hood, and so I was working for the Department of Housing. Then we got orders to go back to Fort Bliss. The Department of Housing actually kept me on and had me working in the same capacity, but out of El Paso, because we had contracts in El Paso, so I could help manage those. And if I'm being totally honest, I don't remember exactly how all of this shakes down. But in addition, as an air defender at that time, and if anyone's listening to this and I completely screw this up, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. But they would rotate. They had a rotation, like every 2 years they rotated into Saudi for 6 months.
Okay.
So we had a deployment coming up. And when you do that, my husband was one of the senior non-commissioned officers. He was a first sergeant at that time. You take on a leadership role as the spouse. You're able to communicate with them. You kind of have a responsibility. You attend meetings so that you know what's going on. You help when people are leaving. You help families when you're there. If somebody needs assistance or something happens, and it always happens, right? I remember that very first deployment. We put our husbands, and I think that it was all husbands at that time. I had a group of friends, and we shipped them off, and we all went out. We went out to lunch afterwards, we're bawling, laughing, all the things. And somebody's car alarm goes off and we can't turn it off. It's a brand new car. Nothing's working. And it was just like, this is it, ladies. Here we go. It's always going to happen. As soon as your spouse leaves, stuff starts to happen. It just doesn't. So anyways, and then that eventually helping with family readiness groups, and you do those things. Tried to work in a couple different places. When we were in Colorado, I actually worked in child protection. I was a social worker. But it's kind of funny. It speaks to the workforce challenges and childcare challenges that we're having to this day. I had to quit because we couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford childcare. That was our third child. And we would have actually, even if I had been working, we would have had to pay out of pocket for me to work. So obviously that didn't make sense. And in between there, I worked on and off at, and it's so funny to say on and off, but it was on and off. Every time, we come back to Fort Bliss, and a couple times I was able to go back to the university and work kind of in the department that had housed my degree. I was able to work in there a couple of different times. Then I ended up working for a nonprofit called Operation Homefront, and their real mission or goal was to serve families when their service member was deployed. So ended up running like toy drives and hosting all of these families, and they would come through and they'd go shopping for their kids for Christmas. And then we did back to school, and it was the same kind of thing. And then we did a big, huge baby shower for folks that were having a baby, and typically their soldier wasn't going to be there for it. Or many times their soldier wasn't there for it.
That was in 2011, 2013, right? That period of time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It's according to your LinkedIn. I'm just looking at it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. I'm glad you saw that. I don't remember. And then, and that was a really neat, job. And that ended kind of suddenly, and I really enjoyed that, and probably would have stayed much longer, but then we moved. We came here, and which was fine.
Real quick, over the weekend, or maybe it was Friday, somebody I work with who had been a Marine was telling me that when he served under Admiral McChrystal, who's very famous, and
I've read his book.
Yeah, and he would do something where he briefed in the spouses, because his thing was, look, if you need to understand, if your spouse gets called at 2 or 3 in the morning, the pager goes off, there's a phone call that comes in, why they're going where they're going, and the things that they're doing, so you don't worry as much. We want you to be just as involved and included and informed as you should be, so that you can, have a good understanding. And I thought that was pretty cool.
And they do that. I remember when the Gulf War broke out, going to meetings, we would all have to go to a meeting to kind of find out what was happening. And it was right at the very beginning when the news, it was all they were talking about, but they didn't necessarily know what they were talking about. They didn't understand brigade, battalion, location, whatever. And they were just, and walking into a meeting, and one of the spouses in there was visibly just beside herself. And we had to look at her and tell her, you have to turn the news off. You have. And I mention that because I had very limited experience on active duty, but I still was. So when my husband and I met and got married, I understood going to the field. I knew what I had a very vague idea, but I understood what a deployment was going to look like. We got phone calls at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and Jim had to go to the police station or go do this or go do that. Or he ruined our brand new carpet cleaner because he went and decided that the carpets in the barracks had to be cleaned.
Oh,
but anyway, that's just one of those things. Yeah, you don't think that, but so those things weren't surprising to me. But when you say that, and I think about that, there were people that it was shocking.
Right.
And what do you mean? Where are you going? Why is the phone ringing? But I kind of grew up in it like that, if you will. Like that wasn't surprising to me. And I just knew that was part of what we were going to have to do. And, but I guess now that I think about it, you had to remember that, as you did talk to people that it didn't make any sense to, and it didn't fit, what their idea of being married and moving to a new place. And, it's different for a lot of people. Somebody just interviewed me. It's going to be, Military Spouse Day, or that's coming up. And, that was one of the things that it made me reflect about, was that how different it was for different people and their expectation, what they thought it would be as opposed to what it really was.
Sure.
And how you manage that.
Yeah.
Now
let's jump to coming to Huntsville.
Yeah.
And so is Jim active duty now, or is he
No.
Is he retired?
He's retired. We came, and he was the Sergeant Major of Space and Missile Defense Command.
Okay.
And that was the end. So he had gone through, he was at the battalion and then the brigade. Then we went to Fort Bliss. And he kind of left the Space and Missile Defense realm. And then when we came to Huntsville, he had jumped back in with SMDC. And so this was his last assignment was here.
Okay.
And so that's how we got here. And we kind of jumped all over the place. I think we've lived in like 5 different houses. It's just kind of what we do. But anyways,
gotcha.
That brought us here. And then I don't remember if we had already retired and I jumped back in to work, but a friend of our, the defense DOD is so big here. And a friend of ours that we knew through SMDC encouraged, well before SMDC, but he found me and said, "Hey, I got a job." And so I jumped back into work, and that was my kind of launching point back into work when we got here.
Now, you had made a comment in the Q&A I do with all guests, like that lead up to this, on that some of the things you're most proud of are your master's degree, the fact you've run in 3 marathons, and that you started your career at 40.
Right.
Right. And I was trying to, obviously you've done a lot of other things you should give yourself credit for, right?
Right.
That constitute your career. But is that role then, where does that start? Like what's that position at 40, if you will, that you attribute to kind of starting your career?
It's funny that you say that. And right before I transitioned to the garden, working at the garden, I sat on a panel it was like the SMD symposium. And it was for spouses, and it was talking about your career. And I think you'll understand when I explain it. I said to this group of people, men and women, you're going to do a lot of different things over the course of your spouse's service, and don't discredit them, and don't shy away from talking about them. I know you're not supposed to have a resume that's 300 pages long, but don't discredit what you learn at each one of those, in each one of those positions, to include volunteer positions. Yeah. And so, but I did a lot of different things, right? I even worked at Starbucks at one point, and it was kind of fun. And so, but when I say I started, I felt like I was late. And when I jumped back into a job, it was a great job and it was a great company. And I was a secretary. And it was something that I had never.
Is this at Quantum?
This was at Quantum.
Okay.
And it was I was dealing with non-disclosure agreements and trying to understand IDIQs and how you do all that fun stuff. Yeah. And I learned just enough to be dangerous. Like now I can sit in a conversation with defense contractors and be like, I got a smidgen of what you're doing. Like I can follow just a little bit. But I worked with great people who encouraged me and encouraged my curiosity, right? So when I say I started my career, and I think just about every spouse of a service member has this, is when you finally get an opportunity to stop, right, and engage in a career, it might not look like what you thought it was going to look like when you were fresh out of college, or even after that. I knew I wanted a career at some point in my life. I did not ever think it would take the shape that it did. But that, when I started with Quantum and we were here, was going to be when I was going to get to really start to dig into a career. And what do I want that to look like? And it was at Quantum. They had a contract at PEO Missiles and Space, and I ended up working for the chief engineer over there. And he, I have my cubicle now, and I've got my stuff set up, what little stuff you have. And he saw that I had a master's degree, and he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm finding my way. I'm figuring it out." Right. But he was lovely. He was a great gentleman. He was very encouraging. And I then ran into a woman that I worked out with, and she, also a military spouse, and she had just jumped back into working after having raised her kids. After having raised her kids, and she was working at the Museum of Art. And I was like, I am sitting behind a desk at the PEO, Missiles in Space, going through all these gates, but it is not pretty. It is not pretty. And you jump back in and you're at the Museum of Art. And I went home that day, saw the job at the Botanical Garden, went through my interviews. That process where you're going to interviews and you're still at your job and you're like, I'm going to lunch a little early. And they offered me the job, and I went back into my boss and I said, "You remember that day you looked at my degrees and you said to me, 'What are you doing here?'" And it was social work and public administration. And here I am at a defense contractor, surrounded by engineers. And every day I went to each one of their offices and said, "Hey, good morning." Probably scared everybody to death, but that's me, and that's what I did. But anyways, I said to him, I'm going to go do something that's kind of like what I really thought I would do, or what my heart is tugging me out, which was nonprofit work, which I had jumped in and out of, right? Operation Homefront was a nonprofit, and volunteering. And so I was able to jump into, so I left that.
I bet they were very excited for you.
They really were.
Yeah.
They really were. I've been very, very fortunate in that regard. When I left the garden to come to the chamber, I was absolutely terrified. Like, I'd been at the garden through COVID, watched a brand new CEO, oh my gosh, navigate what COVID looked like for the garden, all these regulations coming down. You have to close. We're like, we have to close. We're an outdoor venue. What are you talking about? We're a nonprofit, and navigating all of that with her and my peers. And then starting, right, we're getting, things are loosening up. We're starting to get ready. We're ready to start being aggressive. And I was doing fundraising, for a long time. It was just, we've got to sustain and maintain where we are. But it was a time where we could reach out and start to grow and expand again. The position with the chamber came up, and it's kind of a funny story. And Jim played a big role in this, that Chip called and offered me the job, and he said, and we'd like to announce it at the Small Business Awards, which was like the next night. And I was like, "Oh, no, we can't do that. I gotta tell everybody I can't." And Chip was very gracious, and he said, "Okay, no problem. You just let us know, and we'll go from there." I got the phone, and Jim, ever so subtle, we've been married 23 years now, and he looks at me and he goes, "Ashley, it's the Small Business Awards. You're the vice president of small business. They have to announce you. You have to go tell work. It's time." And I was like, no, I can't. I will. I'm going to do this, but I've got to,
Yeah.
I just have to. So we go to bed. He knows me well. He pushed just enough. And then we get up the next morning. I'm getting ready to go. And he says, okay, you're going to tell him today. And I was like,
yes,
no, I can't. And I went in and I got on my immediate supervisor's calendar and got on the CEO's calendar and, went in to tell them both. And I have a very dear friend and I had called her and I was like, how do I do this? I don't know how I'm going to do that. I can't. I feel like I'm, jumping ship. I feel like I'm quitting, all the negative of it. Right. And a good friend of mine, she said to me, if these people are the wonderful people that you have said that they are year after, they are going to be so excited for you. They're going to push you out the door. They're going to be, and they were exactly that. They were beyond gracious, extremely excited, not, we're going to miss you. But
yeah, sure.
This is right. This is where you're this is right. And very encouraging.
So time out. How did you hear about the job at the chamber?
Were
you looking? Someone came and said, hey, Ashley, this is perfect for you?
How did it happen? I knew, so Pammy Jamar had the position, had always loved and admired what Pammy did. And I knew that she had left and I think it was actually Claire Aiello reposted the job posting on LinkedIn.
Oh, and you saw it.
And I saw it. And I immediately applied. I had been at the Garden for 4 years. I started my career, to me, late, and I needed to push.
Yeah.
I needed to push. And so I knew I loved what I was doing. They were taking care of me at the Garden. I was still learning. I'm being challenged. But I knew that this would be the next step if it worked out. This was the first job that I had to have 3 interviews for and panel interviews. And I had never, and I remember saying, I could never do a panel interview. How on earth? I can't do that. And then I did it and I had to do it. And I had to do it a couple of times. And the funniest thing about it was, we were still dealing with COVID at that time. And, I struggle with sinus infections, but what happens is I lose my voice. So I talk like this and I can't. And I lose my voice. And we were still in the throes of COVID. Anyways, my last interview at the chamber, I had to do a Zoom call because I was sick, and I was so mad. I was so like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. I've done all this. We're at this point, and I'm doing it with a voice. Like my voice is cracking. Sometimes I can, and then other times I sound like, I'm going in and out. And I knew the women that were my most. Yeah, I did. I knew who I knew all of them. But it was still, I couldn't believe. It was embarrassing and exciting all at the same time. But that was my final interview for them.
I was just thinking as you were talking. Even in my career, I needed something. I needed to, like, in management, and when you get into federal contracting, and there are so many different things that you can do, but ultimately it's really hard to be that manager that has overall P&L. Like, the buck stops with them. And I had worked on a lot of great things, but I needed something for, like, my confidence that would also have a lot of stress, and I needed a program. I needed to manage a program, but it was extremely difficult to be kind of in the right place at the right time and get to manage a program, because if you ever came across some of the programs we used to run, like you don't just like run away from those. They're like extremely valuable to your career, but just like the mission that we were supporting for Intel community customers. And so you just kind of stay. And so you could never, those positions just would be few and far between. And then boom, it just lines up for me. And even though this ended up being like 18 years into my career, I finally get a chance to run a program, a sizable, gigantic program, and have full responsibility. And then it just sets you up. You just kind of need this experience to prove, okay, am I capable of this? I've always wanted this, and now I have it. Am I actually up to the task?
Yep.
Am I the right person for this? And then when you look back over, like, okay, 3.5 years, awesome. Now I feel like I can do anything. And sometimes, like you just need sometimes that you have all these emotions and things that go into something, but you did the botanical gardens for 4 years. Now, even though it's a little bit scary to go to the chamber, you wouldn't even dip your toe in the water if you didn't feel like you were capable. And now you have cheerleaders. Oh, Ashley, you got this. This is totally you.
Yeah.
You're gonna nail the interview, but you're the one who has to interview.
Right.
So you're kind of thinking, well, I hope so. You got it. You're a shoo-in. They're gonna love you.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, you go and they love you, and now you're doing a great job.
Well, but it's interesting when you say that, like you got into that program manager role, and then it was, now I got to do it.
Now you got to do it.
Now you got to do it. And so all of those, it's right. It's a fantastic team that encourages you and helps you go on, but you're still, I do still feel like, well, right. It's all of those things. It's, can you manage it? And what's the next step? So here's the next step. The buck stops with you. Being okay with that and what that means, and all of what that means. Not only the responsibility, but okay, well, that didn't really work.
Yeah.
So can we try it this way? Can we do it this way? And Chip and other leaders that I've been very fortunate to work with, say, well, you don't know until you don't know. You don't know until it doesn't work. And you have to be willing for it to not work. And you have to be willing to stand there when it doesn't.
Yeah.
And go to the next, and keep pushing to the next thing. And so I'm grateful for those challenges. It's not that it's every side of that challenge.
Yeah.
You're excited about it, looking forward to it, a little scared, a little hesitant, but just, and boy, that so speaks to Huntsville and everything that Huntsville is. It is a city full of people that are just ready to say, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's see, the soccer team, just let's do it. Let's see what happens. Let's see how the community responds to it, and go and learn from it, right? Paralympics, learn from what we did the last time. Let's see how far we can go this time. Yeah. Because you're going to meet your 5-year plan. You're not going to know what to put on that 10-year plan unless you look back and say, that didn't work.
Yeah.
But that did. So let's take our planning with that in our head, right? We know these two things. So now let's push forward from that respect.
It was interesting when I interviewed Mark from Mazda Toyota. The first obstacle they had nothing to do with cars.
Right.
It had to do with those two little fish.
Yep.
The little pygmy sunfish and the campanella snail, whatever. And that was their first challenge.
That you remember that is wicked.
I know. Well, it was just a couple weeks ago. But but at the same time, maybe there's people that were privy to those decisions on, okay, we're going to let them build this 1,500 acre plant. But, there's these fish that are endemic to Limestone County. Maybe there was just an element of trust, like, hey, they'll figure it out.
Oh yeah,
they'll take care of it. Just let them try. Let's not prevent it from happening from these two species. They'll figure out a way. And they did. Yeah. On to not only preserve, but to have them multiply right in their population. And I think that's just a recent example to me of don't just not pursue it. Let's just see what happens. Right. But and the other thing, if I can just my own story and ties to the chamber, when I came here in January of 22, right? Okay. So as far as like my job. And I relate this to, have you ever seen Finding Nemo?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You've seen Finding Nemo, right? And I love it. This is an alternate ending. But one of the alternate ending is, they spend all this time and effort. They make this plan in this aquarium, right? In this dentist's office, like, we got to get out of here. And they figure if they can just get into like a drain chute, it'll shoot them out into the harbor and they're home free. Right. They've escaped. So they put there's all this planning and, they execute the plan. Well, in one of the alternate endings, they end up in like these Ziploc bags, like kind of floating in the harbor.
Yes.
Right. And there's this moment of like, now what? They kind of look around like, oh crap. Like we had this great plan but now we're stuck in these bags or like all the hard work is over.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're potentially home free, but now what? And I kind of thought of the same thing. Like I leaned into coming down here hard and I'm here, Mantech moves me down here. And now I remember kind of sitting in this studio. It wasn't a studio at the time, my home office. And I'm kind of sitting like kind of day one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now what?
Yeah.
What do I do? And one of the first things I did was, okay, let me go to the chamber website. Let me see where we are with our membership. Oh, it's lapsed. Let's reinstate our membership and let's see what events are coming up. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing I know, it was shortly thereafter, I'm at the center to Tuberville, Washington update lunch.
Yep.
And I meet someone, this guy, Ed from AL.com. And
Yeah.
Ed Bourne. He's
Yep.
one of my good friends today. And that's just what you do. It's just this city that's kind of ready to embrace you if you're willing to jump in and do your part and help. Hey, how can I help? How can we help? Right. And it's just been that kind of attitude of like, all right, well, just one person at a time and one relationship at a time. And it is very unique ecosystem that's been created here that largely I think are due to the efforts that come out of the chamber.
Oh, thank you. It's funny as you were saying that, I thought, well, I haven't had this experience career-wise anywhere else but here. Anywhere else, it was really just kind of, I guess, actually a little bit before I left Pitt was very much like this, because I was preparing for a master's program and things like that. So I did see that there, but this is definitely, if you want to find out what the next step is, if you want to find a way to jump in, if you want to do those things, the opportunities are here.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of people that will help you find them, or even Tony Eberhardt, great person to call and just say, this is what I'm thinking. This is where I am. This is what's your suggestion? What do you see as coming next?
Yeah.
And this is definitely a place where your ideas will be fostered and given an opportunity to grow for as far as you're willing to push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's watch one more of your videos.
Oh gosh.
You ready? This is the small business one.
Oh, I have the same jacket on.
The Small Business Award nominations are open. They are open. Visit our website. Nominate your favorite company or companies today. Nominations close April 28th. Don't delay. Go do it today. See you soon.
Thank you.
But how
very
fun
much.
is that, huh? It was a windy day there.
Yeah, it was.
Goodness.
We were getting, and what was really funny is that there was a train, and you actually could hear it, and
really?
that we didn't. And at one point, that's why we did two takes, because she was like, "Let's wait until the train goes by." And I said, "Well, I could like work it in. Nominate your favorite company, doot doot." But yeah, they are. They will. Come on, Ashley, let's go make a video. And so it's fun. And, as you can tell, I mean, we have a good time doing it. So we usually see a jump.
Will you MC the event again? Or did you MC it last time?
I did not. I just had that role to play for, Localopoly. And I actually was supposed to be a little bit more dressed up than that, but it's a good thing I didn't. I had a cane and a thing like a monocle, but it's really good that I didn't try and do all that, because I would have just tripped over myself. But no, I don't think so. We usually have some folks. We have our young professionals from the board that'll do our best places to work luncheon this year, and then we'll get some folks from the community for the Small Business Awards. We already have one of them all lined up. So the best places to work is, geez, I can't even believe it. That luncheon is May 9th. It's right around the corner. You can still buy tickets if you would like to get a seat and help us celebrate the companies that are a best place to work. And then, we're open for the Small Business Award nominations.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's always fun too.
It is.
When you start seeing all that stuff roll in on LinkedIn again, kind of after the fact, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's after the fact is always exciting to me because the worst part is over.
That's right.
But yeah, no, it's always fun and to see people's excitement and
so you
all
essentially
those things.
going back to the nominations close April 28th and it's not until September. And like you said, you've got to send these out for scoring
Right.
to a different chamber in Texas, I think you said.
Right. And we have to give the nominations will come in, you take out all of the duplicates. You got to make sure everybody's a member and they're here and they've got an office here locally. And then you have to give folks time to fill out the application. And I can't, in all honesty, remember if we give them a month or where are we? January, February, March. It's the end of April, May. So we'll probably have about a month to fill out the applications, and then we send them out and give the judges a couple of months to score them, and then get them back and tally all of that. And while they're out to score, we'll be planning the gala.
Gotcha. It's been fun to see you around. I know that, in my role, I'm always looking for small business partners for work that we go after, and met a lot of great people, a lot of great companies, of course, in that process. So I was thinking of like Angela Rittenbach at RSI and her cyber reach program.
Oh, that's right. Because that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I saw you at the Singing River Trail, the launch tank event, which was awesome at Athens State.
It was. They did a great job.
It's more fun. I get more and more comfortable kind of in the community as I just see people that like, oh, I know that person. I've interviewed that person or I'll see like a photo of 4 people and I'll think I've interviewed all 4 of them.
Oh, wow.
And just see all these like lines cross, and just, it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun as your connections grow deeper in the community to know you're going to walk into a room and there's going to be someone.
Sure.
There's going to be someone there. Yeah. I agree.
So this is a picture pack we're about to go through. Oh. Now, these are all pictures you've posted.
Okay.
None of these will be a surprise.
Okay.
And I try to just pick a good variety.
Okay.
Some are with your family, some are just out, But the idea here is to give some commentary.
Okay.
Right? It's one thing for someone to look at your Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you post a picture, but now it's like, oh, what's the story behind the story, if you will, or something that's important to you of why you posted it.
Okay.
All right, so here's the first picture.
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. We were talking about this just the other day. This was our family vacation a couple of years ago. And, as your kids get older, and my kids have never, when I went to the beach, we went to the beach and we sat on the beach. We laid out our, we laid out the quilt and we were at the beach all day.
Right.
That's what we did. And so I think they were all kind of like, we got to do something. And so we went ziplining. This is down at Orange Beach, and we had a ball. I mean, I don't remember it, to tell you the truth, if that was before or after, but we had a great time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. Here's the next one.
That's the Spring Hat Luncheon. That's coming up at the Botanical Garden. So that was quite a few years ago. I think that was Paula Steigerwald is there in the pink. I think that was her last Spring Hat. Yeah, it was a great event.
Spring Hat Luncheon.
Spring Hat Luncheon. It's a big fundraiser for the garden. So that's and ladies come and they get to hear a wonderful speaker, and they have a delicious lunch, and everybody wears hats. It's very reminiscent of a derby, kind of a derby luncheon, and so that's what that is.
Wendy, are we still members at Botanical? Yeah, we're members. We love it.
They have a fabulous exhibit, the origami exhibit, that's up right now, and I actually have only seen pictures. I'm anxious to go. Really, before I found out I was going to be at Hoover all weekend, I was hoping I was going to get to hop over there. But I need to go just at lunch one day and walk the loop and see it all, because I used to tell people to do that. Sponsors, I used to encourage them. Tell your employees, come walk, take a breather, take a break. And now the cafe is open again, and it's really a gem.
And our youngest son worked there last summer with camps and an internship type thing.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, we love it. Next one.
Oh gosh. Yeah. That was our first escape room as a family. My daughter was going to Auburn's architecture camp. So that was in Auburn somewhere.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
Was it fun?
Yeah, it was, you know what? I don't remember a whole lot of it, but yeah, we had a good time and we
got
laughed
out.
pretty hysterically at each other.
That's cool. Someone's first car?
That's Jack, and that's the first car. Yep, that was his first car. Very exciting. I'll tell you what, after that talk about Tesla, that's a Civic.
It's a Honda, yeah.
It's a Honda, and it does that like it kind of drives for you. And
oh,
you
really?
But you have to let it know that you're there. Like you've got to touch the steering wheel, and we drove it, I don't know, somewhere. I think we were going to Nashville and we drove it the other day. And I didn't like it because it only lets you get so far to the car in front of you. And, you know, when you're in traffic and trying to navigate traffic, the car starting and stopping and slowing down and speeding up, it just doesn't work in bumper to bumper traffic. But yeah, that car does that too. But yep.
Crazy technology.
That's still parked in my garage.
All right.
Another year.
Here's a run that you were on.
Oh yeah. Which one is this? Cowboy. I think that's Oak Barrel 2 years ago. It is. That's Oak Barrel 2 years ago. I actually ran into Alice. I now run with Alice's running group here. She's a part of a group of ladies that run 2 to 3 times a week in Madison. But we just ran into each other at Oak Barrel a couple years ago.
Do you run Bradford Creek or Indian Creek?
Yeah, just about anywhere.
All of us?
Yep. I try and jump around. I'm battling a knee injury at the moment, but that's when that was. And then Alice and I did the turkey trot this year.
Did you?
You may have come across that picture too, but yeah.
I probably did. And now this is a cool shot.
That was neat. That was last year. So last year, right, was my first year with the chamber and my first year working with the Women's Business Council. And part of what they do is they work to make sure that we're honoring women-owned businesses. And so we did that both at the city of Madison and the city of Huntsville. And then we work with the governor's office to go down and have a proclamation signed. And those are some of the ladies from the council, not this year, but last year. And we went down and it was great.
How many times have you met Governor Ivy?
Does that count? Like she really didn't say anything.
Oh,
right?
Okay. You didn't really shake hands or anything?
No, she doesn't. There's a lot of people coming and going, and you just kind of say, hello, how are you?
Gotcha.
But we've done that twice now. And then she comes and speaks at the Montgomery, Chamber's Montgomery trip. So I got to see her again last week down there in Montgomery.
Did you go up to DC as well?
I did not this year. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to go next year. It was really, the first time you do that, I remember going to Montgomery last year and just kind of, it was within a couple months of starting and it was just kind of like, okay, hi everyone. You don't really know what you're supposed to do or and it was a really great trip this year. Got to meet some wonderful people. Really looking forward to engaging with a couple different folks on some upcoming programming. Mm-hmm. So got some great ideas. It was a really good trip this year.
Awesome. And there's some.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the Women's Business Council. That was our Women in Missile Defense. That is the Monday. It was a luncheon last year, the Monday before the Space and Missile Defense Symposium.
Oh, yeah.
And so we hosted that and organized it with Raytheon and Alka, who was our chair last year in the middle, Alka Bargov with the Foundation. She was our chair last year, and she also used to work for Raytheon. So it was a huge help to have her and helped us to kind of organize that. It was a great event.
SMD is a good event.
Yes.
It's really well done. And here's a group shot.
That's this year's council. Okay. So that was after the first meeting. We all got to get a picture of everybody, and they have a page on the Facebook chamber page. And this is up on that page. It's funny. You went through so I don't post a lot on my personal social media anymore, unless it's work stuff. And I thought that the other day, I was like, my friends from way back when are probably like, really, Ashley? But
well, thanks for providing the commentary.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Any final thoughts or shout outs?
Oh my gosh. I've already mentioned the best places to work. If you Go register today, buy your ticket. That's on May 9th. Small Business Award nominations are open. We've talked about that a couple of different times. And we really need more volunteers for our Paralympic event that'll be happening over Memorial Day weekend. So go to the Chamber's website. You can find a way to register and sign up for volunteers. It's going to be a wicked event. So cool. A lot of our athletes, a lot of the U.S. athletes are veterans, injured veterans. So they make up a big part of our team, and just that will be a fantastic experience. I'll be there all day that Friday. So those are the big things coming up. Troy, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. I hope you had a good time.
I did have a good time. It wasn't nearly as nerve-wracking as I thought it was going to be.
It's never going to be.
It was great. It was great for all the future guests. It was wasn't nearly as bad. It was just sitting down and having a fun conversation.
So, Ashley-engels-Ross. By the way, so when did you hyphenate your name? Or have you
I've always been a hyphen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wanted to ask you that. And I often will struggle with like Engels. Is it Engles or ELS? Oh, and before we close, we should give a shout out to my neighbors who are your friends. The Ogdens.
Yes.
Leanne and that's probably why I called you Jeff, or like I called your husband Jeff.
Yeah.
Because I was just talking to him the other day. I'm staining my fence and he needs to stain his fence, and I ran into him. We ran into each other, the three of us.
What was that at?
At AUSA Global.
AUSA Global. That's right.
Yeah, we were standing outside the Ignite booth.
That's right.
And talking to Rob Hamilton, and then Jeff walks by, and I'm talking to Jeff, and then you come up, and I'm thinking, oh, I know her. Like, well, but you know him better, and it was a fun little reunion.
It was. That was a fun way to do it. Yeah, I think Jeff and Leanne, we met them here. When we were still active duty. But you know what? I can't help it. I have to tell this story because you were talking about my last name and so Engels, you can imagine. I went to basic training. My drill sergeants called me Laura the whole time from Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, Laura Ingalls Wilder.
And they spelled it Ingalls. Like there wasn't even anything remotely close. And all through basic training, I answered to Laura. Yep. But yeah,
that's funny.
I've been hyphenated.
Good for you. Good for them. That makes it fun.
Yeah.
Hey, well, all the best, and we will. We'll see you around town.
Yep, absolutely.
See you at all the events, and honestly, the chamber was just second to none.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.
You too.